Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Safari Live. My name is Noelle, and on camera today I have Senzo. There's Senzo. He's saying hello. And welcome to Diamond Springs Elementary. Hi, kiddos. I hope you're doing well. Don't forget, we are live and interactive. So kids, send your questions through your teacher so that I can hear them and answer them for you live on screen. Now, I am busy trying to find a female leopard and her tiny little cub. We saw her this morning and she was moving this way. So now it's very warm this afternoon, and so when it's warm like this, cats, the big cats, tend to be resting in the shade. So I'm down inside of a riverbed called the Milwaukee, and I'm slowly driving around and looking inside the shady spots for this beautiful, beautiful leopard. And I'm hoping to find her so that you all can see her as well. Now, I need to apologize for us being a little bit late with start. Every now and then we get a little bit of technical difficulties, and we had a bit of that pop up today, so our sincere apologies for that. Now, kids, you must send through any questions you want. It can be about the leopard that I'm looking for now. It can be about my job. It can be about Senzo's bare feet that I'm really jealous of right now because he gets to wear no shoes and I have to wear shoes because I'm driving the car. It can be about South Africa, where I am. It could be about anything that you feel like asking about. So please send those through. And then I also just want to mention, we are going to be live on TV from the 4th of February for 5 shows, so 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, 10 o'clock Eastern Time on Nat Geo Wild in the United States. All right, now while I keep looking for this leopard, my friend Tristan is on the other side of Djuma, also looking for a leopard, but I think he's looking for a male. Let's head on over to him to see what he has to say to us.
I am indeed. So while Noelle looks for the mommy and baby leopard, I'm looking for a daddy leopard, and not the same dad for that little baby. This is a different one. As Noelle mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I have Wiem, the wildebeest, and so we are going to try and see if we can track down this male leopard. And when I say track down, what we are looking for is little footprints. So we're trying to see where his feet have been on these dirt roads, and then hopefully those little footprints will take us to wherever he is. Although I say little, he's not little at all. He's quite a big boy, so it'll be big footprints that we are looking for. Now remember, you can ask lots of questions, so I would love to hear from all of you and want to know exactly what you think about Africa and what you want to know, and you can just ask your teacher and she'll send them all through to us, and we'll try and answer as many as possible. Now, we're not very far from a waterhole, so we're going to go towards that waterhole and go and see if maybe this leopard on a hot afternoon has decided to go and have a little drink. It's sometimes a good place to go look for leopards. They sit in the shade and they watch all the animals coming down for water. Now, Cameron, you're wondering if bees live in Africa. I think that's what I heard. So yes, Cameron, we do have bees in Africa. We have lots and lots of bees, actually. And unfortunately, though, in the world, the bees are not doing very well because, well, people have taken away a lot of areas where bees used to live, and so there's not much space for them to thrive and to be able to grow and to have lots and lots of families. And so the bee numbers are down a little bit, which is not good. But here in Africa, we still have a nice, healthy amount of bees. So we have lots and lots of bees around. Here in this particular section, we do see bees from time to time in small hives, and they normally in places like a dead tree where there's a hole in the tree and the bees can go inside and they can then build their hive and make their honey and do all of their things that they need to do inside there. So yes, we do see bees, and hopefully, maybe if we're lucky, because to see bees here is a little bit lucky, you have to find the hive, and that's not always very easy. Maybe, just maybe this afternoon, we'll get lucky and find a beehive somewhere. I haven't seen one for quite some time. The last hive that I saw was probably last year, so I haven't seen a hive this year, although we're not very far into the year at all. Now I'm going to try and see, while we're driving along, there's lots of shady spots, and those will be where a leopard sits. As Noelle was saying earlier, she was saying that she's looking in the riverbed because it's nice and shady and cool in there, and it's the same for our male leopard on this side of the world. He's going to be looking for some shade to try and lie down in because it's still too warm for him to expend lots of energy and to move around too much, because otherwise he gets very hot and then he's going to get tired quickly. So you'll find that he'll try and wait until it gets a little bit cooler before he starts moving around. Now you'll see every now and then I look out the side of the car, and that's so that I can try and spot some tracks. Javan, yes, it is afternoon here, so it is an area where, what have you seen, VM? There's a dwarf mongoose. VM has seen a dwarf mongoose. So Javan, we are in the afternoon. We are at about 4 in the afternoon. So it's because we're in the southern hemisphere on the opposite side of the world to you. That's why you are in a different part, and that's why it's morning for you and afternoon for us. Now you see that there are two little creatures there looking at us. Now this is our smallest carnivore. So what a carnivore means is an animal that eats meat. And so these are the smallest that we get out here. Can you believe that those are fully grown adults? They're as big as they get, and these guys will come out of little termite mounds like that, and they'll go and hunt things like beetles and snakes and all kinds of other little things, even maybe some birds and their eggs that they will go after and try and find food. Now in terms of the size of these little guys, well, if you had to put out your arm and you had to look at your arm, because you guys are still a little bit little, you're not as big as what I would be, but if you had to put out your arm, these dwarf mongoose would probably be about the size from your hand until your elbow. That's probably about the size of the dwarf mongoose on my arm. For you it might be a little bit longer depending on how big you all are, because some of you might be big, some of you might be small, but that's about how big a dwarf mongoose is fully grown. It's very, very small. And like I say, what they'll do is, because they live in groups together like this, is they'll be able to go after bigger things like snakes by using each other to try and help each other hunt and to find the food that they need, which is very clever. So Lamont mongoose will eat all kinds of different things. They like to go after anything that they can subdue or that they can grab. So things like beetles, insects. They'll go after worms, snakes, little mice sometimes, baby mice, birds' eggs, baby birds. So those are the kind of things that they go after. Sometimes you'll even find that they will scavenge. Now scavenge is a big word, I know, but scavenge means to go and feed off somebody else's food. So if, let's say, a lion or a leopard killed something and they left, then these guys can come in and try and steal a little bit of the meat from what the lion and the leopard killed. And so sometimes you'll find them doing that, but most of the time they're hunting as a group together. And you can see, look how many of them there are inside there. There will be lots. And look, they play fighting. You see that? They're busy wrestling with each other, and this is what they do because they're a little bit naughty. They like to interact with one another, and they like to play, and they like to roll around. And when it's hot in the afternoon and they're not foraging for food, they can spend their time close to the shade, and then they kind of fight with one another as younger individuals. So these might be teenagers that are busy having a little bit of a game together. And you can see, look how they grab each other, and then they throw each other over, just like wrestling, isn't it? And there we go, jump back up again and carry on fighting. They're very cute little things. I really like dwarf mongoose. They're one of my favorite little animals that we have out here. Always busy with something, always got somewhere to go and something to do. And they go after all kinds of different things. And like I say, they get themselves into lots and lots of different sort of bits of trouble, really. You often find them being chased around by other things. And because they're quite small, lions and leopards sometimes chase them, and birds of prey. And then when they are misbehaving like this, they're not paying attention, then sometimes they can even be killed by those things. So they have to be a bit careful. And that's why you'll find when two are playing like that and are wrestling and busy fighting and play fighting, then there'll always be one that's watching and trying to see what's going on, just to make sure that they keep each other safe. Now, while it looks like they're having lots of fun, these are all important things for them because they're learning while they're doing this. It's basically like going to school. So while you're at school, this is like mongoose school, when they kind of go after each other and they roll around on each other and they play like this. It is all a way to learn how to hunt and also learn how to defend themselves. So it's like they will be able to then learn how to run and jump onto an animal if they want to kill it, as well as then if something attacks them, how to bite them and how to try and get themselves out of that situation and to stay nice and safe. So it's a very good thing to be able to do that, as well as it makes them stronger, so it gets them fitter. It's like if you want to be able to run far, you have to run every day to be able to be able to do it longer and longer and further. Now, Jamal, you want to know how they are able to stand on their feet? Well, what they do is that you see they've got 4 legs, and so they have very strong back legs, and they'll just push themselves off, and then they balance using that long tail. The tail kind of goes off on the back, and it helps just to balance them. It's like if you've ever been to a circus and you've seen a person that is on a little wire and it carries a long pole, and that pole helps for them to balance on that tight wire. It's the same thing with these guys. The little tail just helps to balance them and make sure that they're able to know what they're doing. But you see, when one of them runs and makes a little noise, then all of them go into the hole to try and hide away and to make sure that they stay nice and safe. Right, well, we're going to, I think, probably carry on and try and see. We're going to check the water hole that's just over here, see if there's any sign of our leopard friend. And while we do that, let's send you over to my friend Scott, who's not in a car but using his own feet to move around in the bush.
Yes, I am. I'm walking around, thankfully not alone. Of course, there's somebody holding the camera. That's Dave. And I'm also teamed up with Herbie, who's an expert tracker. And by tracker, I mean somebody who can follow the footprints of the animals through the bush. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to follow the tracks of the mommy leopard and her little baby that Noel told you about a little bit earlier. Now, they were moving through this area this morning, so we're just moving along looking for any tracks. As you can see over here, there's a big dried out water hole. And that's because we haven't been getting as much rain as we would have liked during our what is supposed to be a rainy summer. So we're hoping that soon we will get some rain and this will fill up with water. But that doesn't mean it's going to make our job any more different this afternoon just because this water hole is dry. If anything, it may make it a little bit easier because the animals have less places to drink, which means it's easier for us to look for them at those water points. Mrs. Scarfelli, you would like to know what is the temperature over here? Well, it's very, very hot. We use degrees Celsius here, and it's probably about 35 degrees Celsius, which would put us into the 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And not only is it hot, but it's also quite a sticky, humid area that we're in. So it's not a dry heat, and there's going to be a lot of sweating that happens this afternoon. Jonathan, you would like to know if there's a zebra in Africa, and yes, this is their home. This is where zebra live. And interestingly, Jonathan, you get many different types of zebra, all which have got slightly different sizes and also different kinds of stripes. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to show you any of them now because I don't have any books, but it is something that you could maybe look at with your teacher a little bit later, and you guys can maybe pick out which is your favorite. My favorite type is called a Grevy's zebra, which lives up in Kenya, quite far from where we are here, down on the southern tip of Africa. And there's not too many zebra around this area that we're in at the moment, but we might get lucky a little bit later. Very good. Well, we're going to continue to concentrate. We're moving into quite a thick area here, so I'm going to have to be a little bit more quiet. It's not the same as being on the vehicle when we're on foot. It's a little bit more dangerous walking through the bush. So I'm going to keep quiet, keep testing the wind with my little ash bag, which helps us to know if the animals can smell us or not. And we're going to send you across to Noel, who's still busy searching.
Hello everyone. Alright, so no luck so far with any tracks of this female and her tiny little cub, but I've just had another update from one of the guys that was out a little bit later than we were this morning, and so I'm going to move into another area that he says he left her tracks going. So I am headed up there. Now, I believe you were asking Scott what his favorite zebra was. I don't have a favorite zebra. I like lots of different species and subspecies. So a subspecies is like a cousin. And I think my favorite thing about a zebra is that if you shave a zebra, he's all black underneath. So if you shave a leopard, the spot pattern carries on in there. If you shave a tiger, the stripe pattern carries on into the skin. But for a zebra, you shave them and the stripes don't go down there, they're black. So when a zebra was first on this earth, he didn't have the white stripes. The white stripes developed later to help aid that zebra in many different things. But the main reason why it helps is actually to keep a biting fly away called a tsetse fly. Tsetse flies when they bite the zebra, they get a sickness called sleeping sickness. And so in areas with lots of tsetse flies, you get tiny little black and white stripes together. And in areas with less tsetse flies, you get big, thick black and white stripes alternating across, which is very, very, very interesting. Now, there was also people that came over from Europe who tried to take a zebra and domesticate them like we do with horses. So when I grew up, I rode horse quite a bit, and I do try and keep riding horse as much as possible now. But for a zebra, it's really interesting where their kidneys sit. So for us, everybody, our kidneys sit down here, yeah? And then obviously a zebra has a different body than us. They've got that back. Their kidneys sit up higher than a horse does. So when you sit on their back like we would sit on a horse, it actually hurts them a little bit. They also have very thin skin. And then they've tried, you know, quite a bit, a couple hundred years ago to do this, and even sooner than a couple hundred years ago. The other thing is once you break the spirit of a zebra, it doesn't do very well. So they've never been a good domesticated horse species. Now, zebras and horses are related to each other. So we were talking about species and subspecies, and we were talking about how subspecies are cousins. But then you also get species that occur in different parts that might have the same genus. So we are Homo sapien sapien. Okay, so that's our surname and our name, our last name and our name, in amongst all the different evolutionary trains that we come down, okay? So for a horse, it is Equus Equus. So the surname, the last name is Equus, and then its first name is Equus. So for me, my surname is Van Moden, and then my first name is Noel, okay? Kind of like that. Then for a zebra, you get Equus Burchellii. So it's still the same surname, but then a different first name. So my, let me put it, my dad's name, no, we've got different names now. Anyway, so basically all of these little things that I'm talking to you about between the zebras and the horses and the different surnames and first names that we give them, last names and first names, in a scientific manner, all help scientists figure out who is related to who and how they got to where they got to through all the evolutionary trains. It's really super, super interesting stuff. I had for my school, I did a lot on humans and how humans spread out and how we're related to other types of human species throughout history. And then for my job now here, and for Scott's job and Tristan's job, we need to know these things in case maybe what if we find something new? Or what if someone brings a species from another continent and wants to put it here? How will that affect everything? It's really, really, really interesting stuff. Victory, good question. Are there any houses in the bush? Victory, I live in a house, and Tristan lives in a house, and Scott lives in a house. And I'm actually going to show you a fancy kind of house just now. We're coming across the dam wall. And one of the reasons why I can do the job that I do, and Tristan and Scott, is that there's many people who watch us on TV, like you're doing now, on the YouTube right now. But there's also many people who fly or drive to the wilderness areas where we work, and then they stay in something called a lodge. And they each have their own little tiny individual house in the lodge here. And I'm just going to show you, this is Djuma Lodge, or Vuyatela Lodge. And then surrounding the wilderness areas we work in is where everyone lives permanently. So I might be physically here now, and Senzo, my cameraman, is physically here now, but we have houses just outside of here. So my personal house is about an hour from here, and then Senzo's personal house, if you had to drive down Peter Marisburg, what would it take you, like 10 hours? Senzo would have to drive his car 10 hours through other parts of bush, as well as other cities and towns, and then he gets to his house. So we've got a mixture of wilderness and houses, very similar to the United States, where you have wilderness areas and houses. But then while we work here, we need a place to sleep. I have worked in a place where I lived in a tent, but I much prefer, in my old age, to live in a proper little house and have a shower and a bathroom. Ooh, Jonathan, you'd like to know what kind of food grows here, or fruit? Ah, good question. Jonathan, you want to know what kind of fruit grows here. So we've got a really great example of a fruiting tree for this time of year. This is called a marula tree. Now, the fruits that grow on this tree, it doesn't grow on every single tree. It grows on female trees. The fruits do not grow on the male trees. So it's interesting. It's like humans. Female humans can have babies, male humans cannot. So the fruits are the babies of the tree. And there, can you see the fruit? There, you can see the fruits there. So this would be a female tree. Now, these fruits are not quite ripe yet for human use. When they fall down, they turn yellow, and then they're sweet. Oh, they're even sweeter than sweeties, even sweeter than candy. And they're really high in vitamin C, and they make really good jam, and they make really good juice. There's also, what else can we use them for, Sens? There's also some alcoholic beverages that are made out of them for adults. Ooh, and yes, and then there's a special kind of drink that people use. It has cream in it with this fruit, and you can make cakes with it, and you can make frostings with it. You can make cupcakes. You can put it on ice cream. You can put it on hot chocolate. It's absolutely delicious. Then, just at the base of the tree, we've got lots of mud that's just at the base of this tree. This is from an elephant that's come past, rolled in the mud, and then suffocated all of the itchy insects on his skin and then rubbed them off. It's not very fresh, but you never know. We might find an elephant where we're headed. And while we're still looking for our female leopard, I think Scott has found some tracks to help him and I out finding this female and her baby.
Well, just like Noel was looking at that mud on the tree that could tell her that there was elephants in the area in the past, we are now looking at some other signs that have been left behind. And on the ground over here, there's a small leopard track. We've been following the mom leopard, and she's been making her way down the road. You can maybe, once you take a closer look here, have a look at her 1, 2, 3, 4 toes in front, and then there's the pad at the back. And what I want to try and do is keep walking down the road and see if we can't find you any sign of her cub's tracks, because it'll be interesting, now that you've seen her track, to see one of the little cub's tracks. Here's one here. It's actually going to be quite difficult to see that there's a size difference, but there's a much smaller track over here, and this is of the little cub, so we definitely know that we are tracking the right leopards, and we're going to keep moving as quickly but as safely as we can and try and catch up to the leopard. Now, I would love to know how you guys are feeling, so please tell me what you think about tracking leopards, and if one day maybe when you grow up you'd like to come to Africa and track lions and leopards for yourself. I'm sure you guys are happy to see that we've also got another American in our team, Noel, so it definitely is possible, and I could think of nothing better that when I'm an old man with a longer stick like this helping me to walk, that one day one of you will be taking me on safari. Good. It sounds like Tristan needs some help. He hasn't had much luck this afternoon, so why don't you guys give him a hand in trying to look for some animals?
Well, I haven't, but what I have found is not a leopard, but the most amazing animal that we have out here, and it's the biggest animal, and we've got 2 young male elephants. So these are 2 boy elephants. They're not very big yet, so they're not daddy elephants yet. They still have to grow a little bit more until they get nice and big, and then they can try and become dads. For now, they're just still little boys, and they are slowly moving away from where that waterhole was. We did find the fresh leopard tracks that we were looking for. They were going towards the water to go and have a drink, so we went and looked around, but nothing there, and then we heard the elephants, so we thought we'd come up this side and quickly come and see what's going on. So let's just catch up with them, because they're walking away from us. Elephants at this time of the day will go and try and find water because it's very hot, and they are big animals and they need a lot of water in a day to survive. And so what they do is they come up here and then they'll get some water from the waterhole, and now it's to try and go back and start feeding. Which way are you boys going to go? Are you going to be naughty and come this way now? No, I know what they're doing. I'm going to show you now what they're doing. Hold on 2 seconds. Jovan, you're wondering what I like about my job. Well, Jovan, the best part about my job is that I get to see animals every day and I don't have to sit in an office. So I don't have to sit inside. I can be outside in the sunshine and enjoy the beautiful weather that we get here in Africa and watch these amazing animals as they go about their daily business. So I love the fact that I can be outside every day and also watch everything that's going on. Nasai, you're wondering if elephants drink with their trunk. Yes, so their trunk is like a big straw. So if you go and you have yourself something to drink at a restaurant and they give you a straw, it's the same thing for the elephant. It will suck up through that trunk and get water up there, and then it squirts it back into their mouth. So they don't actually suck it through the trunk and then into their digestive system or into their body. It goes up into the trunk, and then there's a little membrane. Now, a membrane is a type of skin basically that closes up the nose and it stops the water from going into their brain. And then what they do is they lift their trunk to their mouth and they exhale and they push air, and the air squirts the water into their mouth and then they can swallow it. So that's how they drink. It's very, very clever, and they can drink quite a lot. So I was saying just now that they'll drink probably about 100 liters in a day, which is a lot of water. So they spend a lot of time drinking, and also because they're very big animals, the sun gets on them a lot, and that means that they've also got to try and cool themselves down, and so they do that by going towards water where they can have a little bit of a cool down. You can see this elephant on the right hand side. He's very, very dark, and that's because he's been in the water and he's sprayed water all over himself to try and cool him down. Now, Wiem, I think let's see if we maybe go forward a little bit, because they're pushing each other around. Now, this is much like the mongoose. It's the same thing for the elephants. They play fighting. So they are two young males that are just trying to have a little bit of a game, and this is how they wrestle. They'll put their heads together and push each other around, and it's all to try and strengthen the neck and to make the muscles in their neck and their head very strong for when they are older and they have to fight for females and they have to fight for moms. Then they have to try and kind of look after themselves, and if they do all of this, then they practice and they get themselves ready for that. Nadia, you want to know if an elephant eats bananas? Well, Nadia, I think an elephant would love a banana here and there. Unfortunately for them, there's no bananas that grow here in the wild. Bananas are foods in South Africa that are farmed, and so the elephants, they will be very naughty if they go into the farms and they eat all the bananas. But they don't eat bananas out here because we don't have any growing in the wild. But if you gave elephants a banana, it would definitely eat them. Cassidy, yes, elephants will definitely eat grass. Elephants can eat a lot of different things. So they will eat grass, they will eat leaves, they will eat fruits from all of the trees around here. They even will use their tusks to dig up roots, and they'll even eat the bark of a tree. So they have a lot of different things that they eat. They're vegetarian, so they don't eat meat, and they'll eat all of the things that they can try and find that is like the grass and the leaves and the roots and the bark. So they'll use their tusks, they'll use their strength to push trees down if they want leaves, and then they use their trunks to grow around the grass like this, and then they grab a big pile and then they pull it up, and then depending on the time of the year, they'll either eat the top of the grass, which has got seeds on it, and those seeds are very nutritious, or they're going to eat the bottom of the grass where the roots are in the winter months, because that's where the water and the nutrients are in winter when the grass is dead. So they're very clever, they know what they're doing. Now our two boys are being naughty and they're going away from us and moving and pushing each other, so I'm going to just try and get back to where they are, because they seem to be having lots of fun in a big game. So let's see if we can catch up with them. I don't know where our leopards went though. His tracks are all over here, but I can't find him yet. I'm sure I will. It's just that there's lots of elephants around, and so I don't know if I am going to be able to find him right now. We'll just try and watch our ellies for a while longer because they're very entertaining. I'm sure you'll agree. I love the elephants, and they're always a beautiful animal to watch. And you see how the one is being pushed by the other one. So even though they are similar in size, so they're not too far apart, you can see the one closest to me, or to us, is a little bit taller than the other one, but not by much. But because he's a little bit taller, he's being a bit more aggressive. You can see he's pushing the other one a lot, and they've moved quite far from where we first found them, because the bigger one is pushing the other one as far as he can, just for a bit of fun, like I say, and just to make sure that the other one knows that I'm the bigger older individual, and therefore I'm going to try and push you around. There we go. Look. Very, very naughty, these two. And I feel sorry for all the trees in the area, because these guys, when they push each other like this, the poor trees are the ones that suffer. They're the ones that get pushed over and broken and all those kind of things. So you wouldn't want to be a tree when elephants are playing. So Ishan, you're wondering which is faster, a leopard or a cheetah? Ishan, a cheetah is much faster. So a cheetah is the fastest of the land animals that we see out here, and the leopard, well, it doesn't rely on speed, it relies on camouflage and the ability to ambush. Now when you say ambush, it means the ability to just try and surprise an animal from very close by. So the cheetah will run about, it's about 55 to 60 miles an hour if I'm remembering correctly, whereas a leopard will only do about 35 miles an hour. So it's a very big difference. The cheetah is much, much faster, and that's why the cheetah is so long and slender, whereas the leopard is quite thick and very heavily built, and it's got big, strong muscles. So think of it like this. Think of a leopard as a weightlifter that's going to pick up those big weights, whereas a cheetah is like a sprinter that runs the 100 meters. That's how you need to think of it. That's how they're built. They're very similar to one another like that. You two are being very naughty, pushing each other around. Like I say, the poor trees are being broken all over the place. There's a lot of breaking and pushing and shoving, and hopefully they don't push each other into us, because, well, they're not very far from where we are now, and if the one decides to push the other one, we might have a situation where we're going to have an elephant on our bonnet, which will not be very pleasant at all. Can you hear the tusks hitting each other? So there's tusks that are busy hitting every now and then. Tick, tick, tick. And that's because those tusks are very hard. So it's like hitting your teeth. Now I can believe you can hear the branches at the moment. Yes, they are standing all over a dead tree and breaking branches as they go. So that's what you'll hear as well. But hopefully... Oh, that one just made a little bit of a... Whoopsie. So that one is passing wind and is now going to the toilet. He's being a bit naughty, like I say. He's facing us and doing it, which is not what you should do. Kids, don't do that to your friends. Do not turn around and release some gas towards your friends, because that will be also not very good at all. Luckily, the wind is blowing from my back to the elephant, so even though he's being naughty, I can't smell it, which is a good thing, because otherwise it's a bit stinky when the elephant does that. Ah, Jamal, you want to know why their ears are so big. Right, Jamal, well, if you look on the back of their ear, you will see that there's going to be lots and lots and lots of veins. You see that? Look at that. You see all those things that look like little bits of string? Those are veins. Now, the veins carry the blood of the elephant, and so the blood goes into the elephant's ear, and then the elephant flaps its ear, and as it flaps, there is wind that is going over those veins, and that's cooling the blood in those veins down and making the elephant feel much cooler than it is now. So it's to help basically make the elephant more comfortable in the hot African sun. The other thing that it's used for is to be able to hear very well. Now, if you sit and you take your hands, and I want you to put your hands in this sort of shape, so it's in a little half kind of circle shape like this. So take your hands like this, and I want you to put it over your ear, and then try and listen to me. You'll hear that I sound much louder like this than if you take your hand away. And so for an elephant, it's the same thing. It can catch all the sound and make the sound go into the ears, and that they can hear a lot better. Right, well, our naughty elephants are starting to disappear into the bush, so we're going to carry on, try find this leopard, and while we do that, let's go across to Scott, who I think is still on the leopard tracks himself.
Yes, we are still doing our best to try and find you guys this mommy leopard and her baby, and we're going to have to be moving as quickly as we can. We've actually just got a report on the radio. One of the other vehicles driving around has seen some of her tracks quite far ahead of us, and it's important to realize that all of us work as a team out here to try and find animals, and if we didn't work as a team, it would be very, very difficult to find anything. You could imagine how many hiding places there are, and wild animals are unpredictable. They're not like us. They don't sleep like us at the same time every night and wake up at the same time every morning. So, got to be careful of those thorn bushes. Jamal, you would like to know, how do leopards see? Well, their eyes are much better than ours in some regards, but they're very different. Our eyes, we can see color, but we can't see well at night. And most of the big cats you'll find don't see in color, they see in black and white. But what that means is that they can have a good view of animals after dark. So they've given up color for being able to see very well when it's pitch black, and that allows them to sneak up to their prey. So a lot of the antelope and the prey species are similar to us. They can see in better color, but can't see very well after dark. Now, I'm told you guys saw the elephants make a big poop with Tristan, and here's another interesting poop from another big animal. Some of you may recognize this kind of a poop. It looks very much like a cow. So, why don't you guys take a guess of an African animal that looks very, very similar to a cow that made this poop, and I'll wait for your answer. You also get some similar looking animals that are wild that live in America. So those are my clues to you. Very good. Well, we're going to keep moving as quickly but as safely as we can through this bush to hopefully find you the leopard before the end of the safari and send you back to Tristan, who's still with the elephants.
Well, we were going to leave our naughty boys, but they came back out of the bush again, and so they're still pushing each other around and having the best time. And I can actually hear the rest of the herd is arriving, so there's some females and the young ones that are hopefully going to come out as well at some point. Jonathan, you're wondering why elephants have big feet. Well, Jonathan, elephants are very heavy animals. So a big male elephant, he can weigh about 11,000 pounds. Now, that's very heavy, Jonathan. And the problem with that means that there's a lot of weight on the feet and on the toes. And so an elephant needs a big round foot with this big pad on it, which is made out of fat that the elephant can stand on, and it can support and cushion all of that weight and make sure that the elephant walks comfortably without hurting its own feet. And so that's why they have nice big feet. Also, it allows them to go up rocks and around things and through rivers, because if they have very small feet with that weight, then it's going to sink down very deep. But if they have very big round feet, then the weight is spread, and it means that they can cross soft sand and those kind of things quite easily. Right, let me just reverse a little bit, because there are some more elephants here on my right hand side. Right, now I believe that Scott was asking you to guess what type of poo he had that was there. Now, the type of poo that he had was buffalo poo. So it's another type of animal that we get out here, and it was all they eat is grass. So they're not like the elephants that will eat leaves. They're just the grass eaters. Right, let's just get a little bit further back because our boys are here. Right, there we go. So we'll get one last view of our two naughty boys. Maybe let's just get out their way before they push into us. But there they are. All right, you two. Don't be nasty to each other. And you see, now they see that we're watching, they're now behaving themselves. It's always like that when anybody's being naughty and then they get seen, then they'll stop and they'll try and kind of watch and see what's going on. Very cool to see, though. All right, you two. Yes, you've put on quite a show this afternoon. Right, before we say goodbye to all of you, because almost time is up, I believe Noelle has been successful and has found herself a leopard.
Hi everyone, before we had to say goodbye to you kids, this is a leopard. This is a wild leopard. It's not the big male we were looking for, and it's not the female in the cub. It's a young male, a teenage male. His name is Hosana. And I'm so happy that we managed to get here in time so that you all could see what could be your very first leopard in the African wild. Look at how amazing he is with his camouflage. And he's very hot, so he's lying in the shade like we talked about. Now, kiddos, I'm really sorry, but unfortunately it's time up for you all to leave us. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you come back and visit us again soon. And you have to have a good rest of your school day. All right, hello everyone. So we're going to carry on here with Hosana. Yay! We haven't seen Hosana in I think it's about a week, if I remember correctly. Now, he has a kill that's in a tree, but I'm in a very awkward position to show it to you. I'm just going to ask Senzo. Since this marula tree that's here at our 9 o'clock, it's just hanging there. I don't know if we'll manage to get it. We're going to see if we can manage to get it on screen for you. This diker kill that he has in the tree. We're here with other vehicles, so we'll just see what we can do. Senzo, of course, is an expert at his camera work. So this marula tree here, that's just sort of over the backside of this vehicle, and then it's hanging in the middle. You see where it makes a V and then a second V? Yeah. It's on the right-hand side of the second V. It looks like a branch that's hanging down. There we go. There we are. Thank you, darling Senzo. There's his kill, his little diker kill. A little silhouette of it. A little male. There's tiny little horns there. So, because we didn't get to talk with all of you this morning, don't forget that we are live and interactive. Hashtag Safari Live on the Twitter, or send through questions on the YouTube chat. We had a rehearsal this morning for Sunrise Drive, and it went pretty well. Just to give you an update from the rehearsal this morning and from yesterday afternoon, those of you that were with us yesterday afternoon, we were so lucky we got that big herd of buffalo, and then we were searching for the Nkuhumas before we finished Drive. We didn't find them. However, Mr. James Hendry found them this morning at Chitwa Dam, and they had in fact killed a buffalo, so they got a nice big meal. So I hope all of you are happy with that. We then refound that buffalo herd, and they've moved back onto Djuma, possibly up towards Biffle's Hook Dam. So we will see when it cools down a little bit later if we can't maybe possibly get to those Nkuhumas, as well as possibly then also maybe get up to those buffalo. We'll have to wait and see. Tristan found a male leopard we don't see often, but I'm going to let him update you about that because I am blanking on the name. It is a very long name. And then Tandy and Cub were also seen very briefly, and Scott's busy with that. So we've got lots on the move, lots on the go, lots happening, and we are starting off this afternoon right with Hosana here. And for now, it doesn't sound as if the sighting is too busy, so I think I'm going to stick with him for a little while. And while I'm sitting here with Hosana, I think let's head on over to Tristan, so he can update you about that really amazing sighting with that male, and hopefully he finds it for you again.
Well, indeed, Noel, we did have an incredible sighting this morning, so it was pretty cool to see because we haven't really been able to spend much time with this Hukamuri male. So for those of you who don't know who Hukamuri male is a male that's just arrived on the scene and has come into the area, particularly around Elephant Plain, Simambili, Arathusa. And it seems to have kind of set himself up there a little bit between Tingana and where Anderson are roaming about, and for some reason has just kind of managed to get in there without either of them really putting up too much of a fight at this stage. And so what he's been doing is he's been mating there, he's been kind of carrying on doing his thing, and he all of a sudden this morning pitched up out of nowhere at Treehouse Dam, and he was salivating heavily. So he had streams of saliva coming out. His nose was about that far from the ground everywhere he went, and it seemed like he was on the tracks of another leopard. The way that he was salivating was as though he had come across maybe another male's tracks, or maybe he was tracking a female, I don't know, but he was really interested in what he was doing, and he was going up and down Treehouse Dam, round and round and round. And so that's why this afternoon it's been really difficult to find out exactly where he's gone, because there's so many tracks for him around the dam that it's difficult to work out which ones are the freshest ones. I think I found the freshest ones, but unfortunately they go to the water, and then the elephants have absolutely destroyed any sign around the waterhole itself, so I can't really see where he's gone from there. But I can tell you one thing, is that that male is a scary looking fella. So we had him on this termite mound, and I'll show you a picture now shortly of him. And he was sitting there, and he was looking big and bulky, and the saliva coming out, and he's got these very penetrating eyes with this kind of scar on the right side. And I tell you what, he was looking quite ominous, that's for sure. Now, Justin, I honestly don't know how old this leopard is. I don't think he's very young at all, and the reason why I say that is because he's got a few kind of scars on him, he's got a few sort of cuts in his ears, and so he's not a leopard that I would think is a young individual. I might be wrong, I might be, you know, he might have just had a really tough upbringing, but I don't see him as an individual that has really kind of got into a situation where he's, you know, been around for only a short period of time. I think he's been around for a while. Now, I was saying that I'll show you what he looks like, so give me 2 seconds, because I do have a picture with me. He really is an impressive individual, so here we go. Now, that's what he looks like. So you can see he's got quite a serious face. You can see that big kind of black marking underneath the eye that I was talking about. These like orangish eyes, and then you see the saliva that was coming down at the bottom here. He was just dripping, and the whole termite mound where he was sitting was just getting wet with all the saliva that was coming out. And he was really relaxed. I mean, considering he sat like this for a while, and then we followed him for the better part of about 45 minutes without him even so much as caring about us. We did keep it to just 2 vehicles because we were just concerned, and it definitely, if there was 2 vehicles around, he was a little bit more cagey, but with 1 vehicle he was absolutely fine. So hopefully we're going to find him this afternoon. He's a interesting looking fella, and I'm really curious as to who he was tracking this morning. Was he tracking Shadow and Cub? Was he tracking Hosana? Was he tracking Tandy? Was he tracking Ingrid Dam female or Shadulu female, who we had the other day? Who knows? I don't know. There's tracks for females all over the place, there's tracks for males all over the place, and so we'll just have to try and find him. Now, Sarah, you wondering if there's any update on Tingana? No. So I haven't heard any single updates from Tingana since he was lying under those bushes for that 2-day period. I know he was seen walking off, but since then I haven't heard a single update about him. I will try and find out, and I will try and ask what's going on, but I don't think anyone has actually seen him, which is a bit worrying, and that's maybe why this male is starting to push into this area and starting to try and kind of take over. It's concerning though, because obviously Shadow's cub, Tandy's cub, they're all at risk if this male does come in. Right, well, while we try and find him and try and see where he's gone, let's send you back across to Scott, who's on the trail of one of the leopards I just mentioned in the form of Tandy.
It certainly is concerning stuff, and it could be a big reason why that big male leopard was salivating this morning. Herbie enlightened me to some experience that he's had with leopard, and he's noticed that big male leopards and even females will often salivate when they're competing with other leopard and are excited by the competition that they may be having with other leopard, and that could well be happening with that big male who could have got the scent of Tandy in her cub and now be seeking out that cub to kill it. So I'm very happy that Tandy's moved a very long distance away from where she was seen this morning, probably about 1.5 miles. So we've hot-footed it into this area and are now trying to work out where exactly she's gone. So I was just checking the road there. The roads are our easiest place to see tracks. Having said that though, once vehicles driven past, or 2 vehicles, sometimes the evidence gets destroyed, and it's obviously not anyone's fault. People need to drive around, but it can be quite a tricky thing when calling vehicles into the area to help you. Very often, by them coming in, they can actually do you a disservice. So we've noticed that even on the road where we've been following the tracks up till now, 1 or 2 of them have been kind of driven over. But the general movement was in this way, and I'm confident that if we keep checking these pathways, there's one here, the leopard is most likely to take a pathway at some point in time. They don't always stick to them, but they will use them as general routes. Djuma, you'd like to know whose territory is this leopard trying to take over? Well, I mean, Tingana is the dominant male of this area, so it could be that he's trying to kind of come in and oust Tingana. We don't know too much about this male leopard, or maybe just be flying below the radar, taking chances, trying to get lucky with the lady. Now I've seen something here that looks like it could be a track, but it's very, very difficult to tell. I can see possibly 1 toe there, and maybe another 2. So I'll just keep that in the memory bank. I'll mark this position, maybe call Herbie back here if we don't find any other tracks further along one of these pathways. Very good. We're going to keep doing our best to snoop around and seek out Tandy and send you back to Noel and Hosana.
We are just repositioning a little bit. We're right here on one of our boundaries. So on the right-hand side of me, the south of me is Chitwa, where we do drive, and then on the north of me, where Hosana is sitting, is Torchwood. He's right on the fire break, so I can't actually get any closer, and we just had a few vehicles that have left, so I've repositioned so that we can see him as best as we can. And because he has this Diker kill, I believe it was from this morning, we had seen Hosana not last night, but the morning before, and then he had traveled towards a treehouse dam, and then we were looking for him this morning, and that's how Tristan found that other male leopard. But it seems as if this morning he had already made it over here. Now, Tristan and I believe Tristan and Scott have been chatting about this. One of the reasons why we think that male was moving the way that he was moving and salivating the way that he was salivating is because Hosana's smell. So remember, Hosana's not scent marking yet. He's not old enough, but when he walks around, he's still going to leave a smell. He's going to leave a leopard smell, partly to do with those glands on the bottom of his feet. So if that male came in and smelled him, then that's a possibility why he was moving the way that he was moving. It's also possible that some of Tingana's scent marking is still readily available for scent from another leopard, and that could have also gotten him all stirred up, in my opinion. We haven't had enough rain for Tingana's scent marking to really go away. And speaking of Tingana, I have not had an update on our old man since he was underneath that weeping wattle tree. Yes, I think that was about a week ago, if I remember correctly. You all will know better than I will. And I have to say that's one of the things I love about all of the viewers that we have, is you all have such good cataloging memories that it really helps us out from time to time, letting us know exactly the days when things happen. So for anyone that might be new and joining us here with Safari Live, we have lots of leopards in the area that we work here in South Africa in the Sabi Sands. So we also show or film live, I should say, from the Masai Mara up in Kenya as well. And we do see leopard there, but we tend to see a bit more lion and cheetah. Here we tend to see quite a few leopard and lion whenever they're around on our traversing property. And every now and then we get cheetah, but our cheetah populations in the greater Kruger area where we're sitting are low at the moment, and the leopard and lion populations are high. Those populations do peaks and valleys as they move around. So basically what ends up happening is you'll get a population, it will go into a peak, and then something will happen, maybe from weather or from climate or from lack of prey or an abundance of prey, and then they'll go down into a valley, and they do like this. Now, one of the reasons why they think that the cheetah populations in this area are in the valley is because the leopard and lion peak, because there's a lot of interaction there, and the interactions between predators are not quite good. Now, per hectare, so many of you might come from areas where you use acres. We use hectares here. I believe it's 2.2 acres to 1 hectare, if I'm remembering correctly. So per hectare in this area, in the greater Kruger area, we have more organisms than anywhere else in South Africa. And because of the type of trees and grass that we have, it allows for the type of prey species we have, and the soil, of course, has certain organisms that help the soil be nutritious and allow then for the grass and the trees to grow. Then we have an abundance of prey species per hectare, which gives us an abundance of predator species and quite dense populations in small areas, which is one of the reasons why we see leopards often. Now, sometimes, I mean, for the first 45 minutes of drive, myself and Scott and Tristan are really working very, very, very hard to get particular individual leopards that we were looking for. So Tandy, as well as that male that Tristan's looking for. And then Hosana happened to pop up, so, you know, I chose to come over here to him so that we can all enjoy a sighting with him. But we really do. We've got quite a lot of leopard activity here. We don't always see them. We sometimes, as I said before, really have to work very hard. But we work hard in our little area, and everyone else works hard in their area, and then we come together and we also share the sightings, which then helps for you all as well. Guide Monkey, you're asking about habituated animals, let's say a predator, for instance, and if we ever see them. Of course, Guide Monkey, of course we see them. But that being said, so an unhabituated animal does not necessarily mean an unrelaxed animal. Habituation, for those of you that don't know, means that these animals see us as part of their natural habitat, as just like they would see an elephant or a giraffe, if that makes sense. If you want me to go in a bit more explanation, I definitely can do. They are not domesticated animals. Captive bred animals. They are wild animals that we have worked for very hard, generation after generation, trying to get them to be relaxed enough to let us view them the way that we view them. Now, sometimes you'll get individuals who have not had as much time around vehicles and might sometimes behave differently. So an animal that is a predator, and we'll go with leopard for now, that we don't see all the time, that hasn't been through generations of having game drive vehicles around, is going to react in one of two ways. If they've never had a negative impact with a vehicle or a negative impact with a human, they're just going to carry on doing their normal predatory leopard actions and are going to be curious possibly about us, as long as we're not being too noisy. If we're revving engines and talking really loud, that animal's going to go, stuff this, and is going to move away into the bushes. If that animal somewhere along its way, somewhere along its journey, has had a negative impact from humans, say maybe it had part of it's a male leopard, and part of its nomadic time before it took over a territory, there was hunting where they were, or it was on a property where the guiding ethics were not as good as we try to have them here, for general examples, then it's going to tend to be more shy and move away. But that being said, specifically for most of the places where we personally would be currently right now with our show, although we are hoping to expand, and or where you would go to a lodge, most of those species have been around game drive vehicles for quite a long time. So that habituation process is sometimes with one individual over that one individual's lifespan, and sometimes it's the process like here in the Sabi Sands. Many of these places and generations have been going on for 60 years or more. So anyways, a very long-winded answer, but it's a super interesting conversation. Thanks, Guide Monkey, for bringing that up. And if you have any more questions after we go to Tristan, you're more than welcome to ask them, and I'll answer them when we come back.
Right, now we're still on the lookout for this leopard. So far, no real luck that I can speak of. I've done the southern fire break and just to check if he didn't maybe cross south. I can't see anything. It's not to say that he didn't. The fire break is quite narrow, and so very difficult to drive and see the tracks without actually kind of squashing them before you even see them. So I don't know if he is still here, but it doesn't look like he's crossed south, which is good news. So Joy, who's from Hong Kong. Joy, you want to know where this new leopard has come from? Well, Joy, this is the thing, is no one actually knows where he comes from. So his whole name and where he comes from is all a bit of a confusion, and it's a bit of a shame because they've misidentified him, and therefore he's been given this name, the Hukumuri male, even though he isn't actually from that area. Now, I'll tell you how it all went about, but basically there's an area to the west of us, far west, so west of Elephant Plains, in an area called Ottawa. Now, Ottawa is a section of Singita that Singita traverses, and in that Ottawa area is a drainage line. So much like the Mulawati, it's called the Hukumuri drainage. What it means I don't actually know, to be honest with you, but anyway, the Hukumuri is the drainage, and there's a female that hangs around there known as the Hukumuri female. Now, she has a son, and for a few weeks or months, I don't know, people believe that this male that we're seeing now was her son, but the spot patterns don't match, so this male has actually been misidentified as the Hukumuri male, but by then he had been so well known as that it was very difficult to now change the name. So, and as well as the fact that the Hukumuri female's son is no longer really being seen, no one has seen him for a while, and so they've just stuck with this name. Like I say, I'm not sure I'm 100% with it, but at the end of the day it is what it is, and so we just kind of deal with it and we carry on. But that's where the name comes from and where he thought to have come from, but he has not. So he's not actually from that area, but that's where the name comes from. Now, Elim and Tiny, you were wondering about that name and why he got the name, or what the name means. Like I say, I'm not 100% sure on the meaning. I had a little diker there, but it's now run away. So I'm not 100% sure on the meaning. Maybe we'll ask James. We'll try and find out if James knows, because James obviously is very good with this. I don't know if Scott knows either, because Scott obviously was at Singita as well at the same time I was there, and he remembers the Hukamuri drainage, but he doesn't remember quite what it meant either. So either of us don't really know, and like I say, that's where he's believed to have come from, but actually it's not, and so we don't know where he is. He might have come from Kruger, and hence why he's as skittish as he was when he first arrived. The first few times people were seeing him, he tended to move away quite quickly and not really be allowing vehicles to come too close. So that could be why he is the way that he is. Difficult to say. We don't really know 100% sure where he is, where from, what his age is, or anything like that. So Debbie, you're wondering why an old territorial male would leave his territory or established area? Well, it's quite simple, Debbie. It's because of pressure from others, or a situation where there's more desirable areas that he can go and take over. So when you start out as a young male, generally, if you look at Hosana, for example, he's kind of going in a very small area. He's not moving around very far at all. He's kind of bouncing around in those areas, and that's kind of where he roams. As he gets older, so he's going to try and push and push and push and try and expand to include better places, more areas, trying to get a better sort of access to females and water and food, and so that's why they'll move. As to if he had an established territory that was already big, well, he could have had a situation like Tingana had, where Anderson came in. Anderson, being a bigger leopard than what Tingana is, comes in and then causes him to be pushed out and forced into a new area where he has to go. And so Anderson came, Tingana pushed, and they ended up like this and pushing Mvula out. So it does happen even to territorial leopards. Now I'll show you what his track size looks like shortly, because his tracks are right here. So this is where we had him this morning. I followed him around this area, so I'll show you now what his tracks look like. And we have done quite a few tracks of Tingana and the various other males in this area, and so it will be nice just to give you a comparison of what his foot size is. So the track that I'm talking about is this one over here. You can see the toes very clearly in this deep sand, and then the nice sort of three lobes at the back, and the triangular pad that most leopards have. Now I'm going to put my hand there for an indication of his track size. His track, to me, is not the biggest. I have seen bigger than that. So Tingana's to me is bigger, and so funny enough is Tumba's. Tumba, I've seen his tracks in this exact same area as well as Hosana's, and both of them tend to be a little bit bigger than what you see here. So even though he's quite a bulky leopard, his feet, funny enough, are not that big. Now, his tracks from here, they went all the way across the dam. He went up away from the dam, but then the fresh tracks come back down the road, back to the dam itself to drink. So I'm going to try and see if maybe he's not in this drainage section that runs off the dam. I think maybe he got chased off by some ellies, because there were lots of elephants that drank here. We saw some of the bulls during the school drive playing around, and I think maybe, just maybe, he's found himself a shady spot not too far from the dam to have a nice rest. So that's my plan, is to try and just head in here and just follow the drainage along and see if I can find him somewhere in this general vicinity. I might not have any luck, but it's worth a shot. Now, I don't need to get off the vehicle just yet, Nick, so you're more than welcome to fire away with another question that you may have. So Kobe, who's 15 years old, wants to know whether I think Hukamuri male might have bumped into Tingana and they fought, and that's why Tingana is either off hiding or is not feeling very well under the weather. Possible. I don't know for sure without actually seeing them bump into one another. Difficult to say. The thing is about Tingana is that he could have bumped into a number of different leopards. It could have been this Hukamuri male, he could have bumped into Quarantine, he could have bumped into this Umfakazi male. Now some of you won't know who Umfakazi is, but Umfakazi is a male that gets seen on Biffel's Hook and has been seen on Simambili recently, who's also an older male, and so he might have bumped into him. He might have bumped into, who else is around? Shavambalano, you never know, he might have come out of nowhere. So there's a number of different options that Tingana could have got himself into a bit of strife with, and then there's also not ruling out maybe a lioness or something like that. So At this stage, I don't really know what happened to him. I don't think we will know, because obviously it's difficult unless you actually see it. It's all just surmising and we can't really say for sure. Right, now I'm going to follow this little pathway through. There's a nice big termite mound here with some shade. I'm going to check there, see if he's not lying up somewhere in this area. And while we do that, let's send you back to Scott and see if he's having a little bit more luck than I am with Tandy.
We certainly are. We are back on the trail of Tandy and her cub, and she's heading away from the roads, which is going to kind of make our lives a little bit easier in a sense that no vehicles can drive over them anymore. And she's heading into a bit of a Bermuda Triangle. She's moved up this pathway. I'm not going to bother trying to show you the tracks because it's near impossible to see them. But she has been sneaking her way up here. The cub is still moving with her, and I'm just going to take it very slowly from here because there are so many hiding points. I'm just whistling to Herbie to let him know where we are. We had split up so that we could cover ground more effectively. And he went south, I went north, and we got lucky with the tracks here. But it's definitely going to be useful to put him onto this trail now, because I find it far more difficult to follow the trail of leopard than he does. Okay, good. There's one more track here. Dora, you would like to know if Tandy and Shadow will need to leave this area now because of this male leopard coming onto the scene. Well, yes, I mean, that's exactly what she's doing. We're still going here. I'm just marking the tracks with my foot like that so Herbie can see them very easily when he catches up to us. And also, if we do need to come back to the last tracks, it's easily marked. So yes, Dora, I mean, she's moving away from that big male leopard, and she can't keep fleeing forever because she's just going to come across other males. So she just kind of has to dodge and weave as she goes along and try and stay away, not only from male leopards, but also if there's lions in the area, she needs to stay away from them. Okay, good. Herbie's caught up with us. Now we've got the real pro back on track here. Okay, Sky, you're wondering if there's anything that Tandy can do to try and protect her cub now that Hukamuri's in town. All she can do is try and hide the cub from him. That's the only thing that she can do. She can't really do much else. Hopefully Tingana's going to come into the area and give him a good old box and get him out of this area. So that's what we're going to do. After you, Herbie. Show us the way. So now we've got the expert back on the trail, and it's incredible to watch him in action. Like I said yesterday, you can only really appreciate how much skill the guy has if you are actually right behind him. It's very difficult for us to show you how difficult it actually is to see the tracks. So Sky, essentially, no, there's not much she can do other than what she's doing at the moment. It's normal for leopard to have this kind of a problem in their lives. It's not abnormal. And I think, just judging by her behavior that we've seen of her dodging lions and now this male leopard, goes to show she's got her wits about her and she's doing everything she can. Okay, good stuff. Well, Herbie seems to think she's moved off this way now, so we're just going to keep checking these little pathways, and we'll be sure to call you back if we come across her at any point in time. Wish us luck. Back to Noel.
So Hosana is still doing what very full leopards do in the heat of the day. He is sleeping in the shade. The flies are bothering him every now and then, so he turns a little bit. And he's also now lying on his back with his back legs open to help ventilate. There's a main artery there at the back leg joining up to the body. And so by opening that, it helps with releasing heat. Lions do a very similar thing as well. But you can see his fast-moving breathing there, trying to, 1, digest his food, and 2, stay as cool as possible. And his beautiful rosetted coat, which for someone like what's happening with Scott right now or with Tristan, When you're tracking the way that you're tracking, it can sometimes be difficult in the thicker bush to then also spot the leopard that you're tracking, because their whole makeup is to be camouflaged. And then also, one of the reasons why predators lie in the shade, other than trying to avoid the heat, is so that they can avoid prying eyes, and also it lying in the shade, it takes your depth perception away. It's a good way to hide. We do it on bushwalk as well. You can sit in the shade somewhere, and sometimes things like elephants will just walk right past you without even noticing you're there if your wind is correct. Anna, really interesting question. You're asking if Tingana, the father of Hosana, is likely to be aggressive to Hosana now that Hosana is almost 2 and because he's growing up. Now, Anna, I think it's going to be a mismatch of scenarios. So sometimes we'll find Tingana and Hosana together and they're fine. There's no issue. If there's food present, sometimes you'll get more aggression, sometimes you won't. Hosana's at that funny little stage where even though he is growing up, he is not a mature male yet. He doesn't smell like a mature male, he doesn't scent mark, he doesn't do anything that would make Tingana want to put him back in his place. If Hosana sticks around this area, which we are all thinking that he possibly might do, and he starts reaching sort of 4 years old or a little bit older, and then starts, and he's going to be bigger then, and properly male size, and starts doing things like scent marking, the relationship between him and Tingana will get extremely tense, because that means that Tingana is going to start losing power over his territory as Hosana tries to take that power from his territory away. There's been quite a bit of research done on leopards, but there hasn't been a huge amount of research done on interactions between male offspring and their fathers. I worked with a woman in Namibia who was finding out some very interesting tidbits about this scenario, and one of the things that she was finding out through some of her research, it wasn't the main goal of her research, but it ended up, I believe, being something that really drew her attention, is that when the males leave their mums around 2 years old, so if Karula had survived, Hosana would only have been leaving his mum about now. As we all know, Karula unfortunately passed away and Hosana had to sort of survive much earlier than is normal. But let's say Karula had carried on and Hosana would just be leaving her now in the next few months. The females tend to leave their mums at about 1.5 years, and the males around 2 years old. It depends upon personality and individual leopard as well. Sometimes the mums keep them a little bit longer, sometimes they push them out a little bit sooner. Then he would have gone off possibly and become nomadic, or he might have stuck around this area like he's doing now. Oh, his head is up. Thank goodness. Now, what my friend, the researcher, was finding out is when the males then leave their mums, sometimes, especially in areas like this where there's a high population, and sometimes in areas where the populations are more spread out due to varying different circumstances with the ecology and habitat of the area, the fathers sometimes they don't take on the male youngsters like elephants do, where there's that sort of scary relationship between an old man and a young bull, but they do tend to tolerate them to a point as they're being more submissive because they're younger males with an older male and not being territorial and therefore trying to become dominant. That was a very long-winded answer, I'm sorry, but there's so many different variables. Monique in London, you're asking when will Hosana get popcorn-smelling urine? Monique, good question. My answer to that is he probably already has popcorn-smelling urine, but he's not going to be using that urine to scent mark. That being said, however, the older he gets, the more his testosterone is going to kick in, especially when he becomes territorial. So that type of scent, that type of popcorn scent, or the bodies that are inside the scent and the position on the trees and bushes that he scent marks is going to become different as he gets older. And that's what's going to demarcate whether he's doing territorial markings or just weeing. But it should already have a popcorn scent to it. Alright, now while we wait for Hosana to get moving, and I'm hoping it's going to be soon, and up to that kill and having a little bit of a snack, let's head on over to Tristan, who's still busy tracking our other male leopard.
I am indeed. I'm still busy trying to find this male, but phew, no luck so far. I feel like wherever he is, he's just watching me with the shade and just kind of seeing us going round and round in circles, thinking, you fools, I'm right here. But anyway, we'll hope that he does come down at some point. I want to just check a little further to the east, because the last track comes, like I say, in this sort of southeasterly direction. So I just want to double check. So Tom, you're wondering if a leopard or a lion, if Rusty would get into reverse, can tell whether or not another male is bigger just by their scent marking. So no, I don't think so. I would be very surprised if that was the case, because we've seen leopards like Hosana following the scent mark of Tingana before, and so you would think that if it was a bigger male, I don't know, maybe maybe they know that that's a bigger male, or Hosana knows what Tingana smells like and that's why he follows it. I don't know, but I don't think so. I don't think they can get a true appreciation for size or strength or dominance just from the urine of another male, especially if it's a big male and another big male. They actively will seek each other out rather than shying away from one another if they feel like they should be the dominant characters in that area. So I'm not sure that would be the case. So Katie, if a male does smell another male in the area, scent marking, he certainly is going to try and find that male and try and get rid of that intruder and try and push him out, make sure that he no longer stays in that area, and tries to make sure that he just kind of gets told that you're not welcome here. Now, what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just checking. This is a little sneaky drainage because I've seen Tandy, Shadow, I've seen Hosana, I've seen a number of different leopards just sneak into this drainage line, and they walk along it, and you have absolutely no idea that they are here. So it's always worth just coming down, and let's see if we just go through here, maybe we can find something. Right, well, let's send you back to Noelle, because I believe, well, she's got some big pachyderms that are approaching Hosana, so who knows what's going to happen there, but I'm sure it will be interesting nonetheless.
Everyone, we've got a really interesting scenario that's happening now. Just after you left us, we started getting impala alarm calls to the right of Hosana, and then to the left of Hosana, this herd of elephants came up. Now, this herd of elephants is going to come past Hosana actually quite closely, not the whole herd, but enough of the herd, and he's doing two things. One is he's ducking down behind this sort of tree and trying to keep out of the way of these elephants. And now, of course, he picks his head back up because he's gotten a little bit curious. And then the other thing that he's doing is he's listening to those impala alarm calls, which could be for a couple of things. There was a few Birmingham males. The Birmingham males are a coalition of male lions, one of which is with the Nkuhumas that are south of me, but two of them I was busy tracking this morning are not where the tracks were not far from here. We also had 4 cheetahs that were in this property yesterday that we haven't seen yet, and we also haven't seen Tingana, who likes this area, and we haven't seen Quarantine a long time, who also likes this area. There's quite a lot happening now. I've heard the impala have stopped calling, but I'm just going to go quiet for a second and see if we can hear anything. I don't know if you all heard that, but there's an elephant that farted just behind us. We've got more ellies coming. So that main herd came through, and the way the wind is blowing, it didn't blow his scent or the scent of that dead diker towards them, and or they just decided they didn't care. I was actually very surprised that one bull that walked just behind Hosana didn't see anything. And notice how he stayed relatively still. Again, he's in the shade. It is hard for elephants to look into the shade and see a predator that is not moving, and then if they can't smell it, they don't don't know it's there. However, the ellies that are just behind us, if they keep making their way to where the rest of the herd is, they will possibly catch the smell of Hosana and this kill, and they may or may not do anything about it. I've seen elephants react in two different ways with leopards. I've seen them get upset when a leopard is around like this, and it usually depends if they've got tiny little babies. And I've also watched a female leopard in particular walk between the legs of a herd of elephants, and they haven't done a single thing. So I think it really depends on one, the size of the leopard, two, what the leopard is doing, and three, whether or not the elephant herd has teeny tiny babies. Because a tiny baby elephant, Hosana could definitely catch, and I think the elephants know that. Now, I would be very interested to sit here for a while longer and see if anything comes from those impala alarm calls. Maybe we get some leopard interaction. Maybe Tingana pops up because we've been talking about. Bev, very good question. You're asking about Mvula. For any of you that don't know who Mvula is another large male leopard, much larger than Hosana, much older than Hosana, who used to have quite a firm territory in this area. When Tristan and I first started working together about 7 years ago, I actually did some work for him at Chitwa Lodge. Mvula was one of the main male leopards that we saw, Mvula and Mafufanyan. Mafufanyan passed away not shortly after I did my little stint with Tristan, some freelance work, and then Mvula's been around in the area on and off for quite some time. I was a guest at Cheetah Plains several years ago. We got lots of views of Mvula, but now as he's getting older, he's really having trouble keeping any of his territory. Part of that has to do with Tingana, part of that has to do with quarantine, and some other male leopards. So as far as I know, Bev, he's actually started to be more south from us in the Londolozi area, and I think he's basically at this moment just sort of working the boundaries between male territories and just trying to stay alive. He's an old male. He's around 12 years old, 11, 12 years old, and he's coming up to the time where unfortunately he's an elderly leopard. Tingana is also coming up to the time where he's an elderly leopard, but Mvula is sort of feeling it a bit more unfortunately. I love Mvula. He's my favorite male in this area, so it makes me sad, but it is part of nature. It is what happens. Now, speaking of leopards, let's head on over to Scott, who I know has some stories about Mvula and Tingana he might want to share, and hopefully he's found Tandy.
Yes, many a happy memory of old Mvula. He was the dominant male leopard when I arrived in this area 3 years ago, and it was kind of by the time I left that Tingana had come in and started becoming more dominant. Now, we've got some updates on the tracks. It seems like Tandy has stashed the cub somewhere not too far behind us, and the important thing is we know that area, so that's hugely beneficial for us because she's now headed out in search of food. We're trying to follow her trail. It's very tricky in this area, but even if we don't have any luck today, we'll know where to come back to and start searching, because as soon as she is lucky with a kill, or even if she isn't, she's going to need to come back to that cub and then go hunting again. And now that we know that kind of general area that she's in, as long as we keep moving around, we'll eventually get lucky. Okay, now for some of you who have just joined us for this portion of the safari, I'm going to say goodbye for now. Thanks so much for joining in. If you would like to continue following on for the last half an hour or so, just Google Safari Live and you will find us on another platform. Okie dokes. Now, again, Herbie and I have split up temporarily. We did hear one of his telltale whistles, which means he's got some info for us, so we're slowly making our way in that direction. But as we go, I'm going to keep checking for any tracks. Okay. Now I've got a better idea of where he is. Sorry, I just had to pull my earpiece out there. There are some elephants also in this area, so I don't want to be on either, kind of circle the elephant, encompass the elephants. I'm just going to try and dodge them. Monique, you would like to know if Here's the elephant here. Give us a second. There's a strong chance it's going to pick up our scent. Although the wind is swirling, so maybe we'll get lucky. But let's keep moving. Herbie's with us now, so all good. And we can just enjoy the sighting. And sorry, Monique, I can continue answering your question. You would like to know if Shadow's young cub would be okay with this new male leopard, or would she need to be independent for him not to kill her? She would need to be independent, not necessarily sexually mature, but as long as she's moving around alone, he's not going to see her as a threat to mating rights. So I think she could well make it through. But Tandy's cub, on the other hand, would be a definite target for the hukumuri male. And I've got lots of wonderful memories of tracking lions in the hukumuri drainage to the south and west of here. As I'm sure Tristan told you, we both used to work in that area. And there was a pride of lions called the Ottawa Pride. They were very ferocious, and they would almost always charge you on foot, which is quite rare, actually. Usually lions will run away, but this pride had 2 lionesses that loved giving us a good old rev when we found them. Now, trying to tell what to do with the wind here. It is swirling around quite a lot, so I don't think we're going to spend too much time with this Ellie. It looks like it could be a young bull on his own. But we're going to keep moving, leave him be, and focus on our task at hand, which is trying to find this leopard. Oh, good. Apparently her tracks are coming this way. And Herbie's obviously doing a good job in working out where she's going. This area that we're in is a very, very tricky area to get vehicles into. So let's hope that Tandy doesn't spend too much time here, because there's a whole bunch of small kind of drainage lines and riverbeds where she can hide out. Perfect place to hide her cub, I guess. Safari Wildman, you would like to know if Tandy would give us a good old rev if we came across her. She could. There's no guarantees. And just like us as humans, our reaction to certain scenarios will differ depending on our moods, depending on so many variables. So there is a chance she will give us a rev, but only time will tell. We can't be 100% sure, but what we do know is that she can be quite snarly, and she could give us a little bit of a growl. Usually they do give you a bit of a growl before they come and charge you. Caitlin, you would like to know what I would do if we came across Tandy and cub on foot. Well, depending on her reaction, I may have to nunchuck her tap with my sock. Only joking. I would never do that. But you may find throwing a sock at it or something when it's charging you may make it think twice about things. Maybe throw my radio next. My hat next thereafter, but that'll be tricky because it's a long cable. It wouldn't go anywhere. But your best thing to do is just to stand your ground, and with leopards not make eye contact, which sounds absolutely ridiculous and bizarre, because how can you not look at something that's charging you? But they really don't like your eyes locked on with theirs. So if you just look down to the ground and shout and scream and wave your arms to make yourself look as big as possible, they're generally not going to attack you. And I've had leopards literally dancing and pirouetting around me, too fast for my brain to even process, yet they didn't actually lash out. They just came very close to just let you know that they mean business. Okay, Herbie, what do you think, my friend? She's in the drainage. Okay, perfect. Well done, M4. Okay, show us the way before I stand on all the tracks. So I'll get Herbie back in track on front. He came back to rescue us, I think, when he caught wind of that elephant in the area. I got a little bit snagged there. Okay, very good. Well, seeing as though we don't have any tracks to show you, we're going to send you back to Tristan, who's back on the trail of that male. Good luck to him. It's not easy tracking when you're stuck in a vehicle, so he's doing a great job, and I hope he gets lucky.
Well, we're trying, Scotty, but what we've come across is the proverbial highway for leopards, because what concerns me about this is it looks as though this male leopard has come across the tracks for Tandy and the cub, and he's been up and down here all over the place. He's going south, north, and kind of strolling up and down. Now, the best male track that I could probably show you would be this one over here. So there you can see he's going southwards and he goes down. He then turned, came back, sniffed around all this area, and there's even tracks for the little cub and Tandy in the same place, which I'll show you now. So there's another foot for him. And if we come back this way a little bit and we come up, here's the track. Well, a very, very obscured one for the cub over there. That's not looking very clean and neat and tidy at all. But that would be for the little one going up and down. And then if we come a little bit further up this way, just trying to find a nice clean one for Tandy. She's also got a track in amongst all of this as well. So difficult to see it here. I saw a really nice one further back maybe, Vildy. Let's have a look back here. There was a really nice clean one that was kind of walking along the road and made it much easier to see. Oh, there it is. So here is the other one that I was looking for, which is the female track. So you can see if I put my hand down from earlier, there is the back of the pads there, and there are the toes. So it's almost double the size, this male track, and he definitely picked up her scent, and he was back and forth in this area trying to work out what's going on, which is a bit concerning because it means that if he's picked it up, he knows that there's a female here, he knows there's a female with a cub, and he might be tracking her, and that's why Tandy has moved so far during the day today, which is not ideal at all. So I just want to see where he goes, because there is a track that goes up towards the old hyena den, and then lots of other tracks that go back again as well. So let's just check up at the den. Maybe he's lying in the termite mound there in the shade, which would be quite nice if he is, and not following Tandy instead. But like I say, if you just have a look at this, it's absolutely incredible, because the entire road, it looks like a pride of leopards have walked here, and that's because he's just going up and down so much. So that whole right hand section, that is all leopard tracks. There's no hyena tracks in there. All those little pug marks that you are seeing and all the disturbances on that soil, literally every single one of those marks is from a leopard, which is pretty insane. So I don't know if maybe Tandy was here last night with the cub and that's what he's picked up, and he's decided he's going to come and check what's going on. It's interesting to see. But Nana, you're wondering how we can tell which leopard is which? Well, I mean, it depends on the situation. In this case, I know it's Tandy and cub because I found them here this morning, as well as then I found the male at Treehouse Dam, and these tracks come from the Treehouse Dam area and come straight towards the side. So that's why I know it's for that male and for Tandy and cub. So, but generally we try and utilize an area that we're in. So we try and kind of have a situation where we'll look at, okay, we're here in the middle of Djuma. This section typically is for Tandy, and so that's who we would think we would be tracking, especially if she moves, let's say, towards the Mulawati, then we think that. It's not always an exact science, we don't always get it right, but it's a worth kind of, that's how we generally establish what we're doing. Then also sizes of tracks. So in the case of, let's say, Tandy and the cub, you know that she's the only one that's got a small cub in this area, and therefore it can only be her if there's a cub track there. If you're seeing two leopard footprints that are very similar in size, one slightly smaller than the other though, both females, shadow and cub, and then if it's somebody that's really, really big, before we used to just immediately go straight to Tingana, but now it's complicated because we have Tamba, Tingana, this new male, that are all kind of similar sizes, and if you haven't seen the other one, then it's very, very difficult to know where those tracks are coming from and who's actually caused those tracks. So it's a difficult thing to do, but that's roughly how we do it and why we can say we think we're tracking this individual. As for like Scott this afternoon, we know for sure he's tracking Tandy and cub because we found her this morning and he's tracked her pretty much from where we left her and where she was walking. But I don't like the fact that this male's onto these tracks. It concerns me slightly because I don't want him to be able to follow Tandy and to work out that there's another female here that he can potentially mate with, because he is then going to pursue her as much as possible. It also hopefully will mean that if he goes too far, he kind of loses his nerve a little bit and thinks, well, I'm way out of my depth now, I need to turn back and go. So hopefully that's the case. But from here, I'm not really sure where to go and check because I didn't find anything crossing. So I'm not 100% sure where he's gone, but I'm sure these are his tracks. They are definitely male leopard. They're definitely from today. So I'm not 100% sure where else to go from here. Maybe Ingwe Alley is a worthwhile place to check. Will, so you're wondering how a male of any species can tell if the baby is his. Well, in the case of the cats, often when they find the female, they're finding her via scent marking. So she starts to scent mark, she starts to vocalize, and there will be a specific scent that she will leave for him to follow. Now, when he then follows it and he goes along with it, you'll have a situation where he then recognizes that scent. And if he mates with that female, he recognizes that he's mated with her, and that scent that she leaves behind is the scent that he realizes is the one that he knows. And that's when you'll get a situation that he recognizes, okay, I've mated. Whether or not he mated with her exactly and those cubs are exactly his is anyone's guess, and even for him, he probably won't know whether they're his or not. But he's fooled into thinking that they're his because he mates with her, and the scent that's left behind is kind of similar to what he smelt before. Okay, so now there are no tracks coming out this side that I can see anywhere. I want to double check these roads that go down to Rebecca's. I want to quickly double check Weaver's Nest in this area and just see if maybe I can pick up something. And while we do that, let's go back across to Noel and see what the update is with Hosana.
We've had a few stretches from our little Hosana, and it seems to be him deciding whether or not he's going to fully wake up and go to his kill. Now, we've been discussing, do we go away and come back? And I've decided I think we're just going to sit here, even though it is a very lazy leopard, or sorry, energy efficient, very full leopard. We will sit with him and see what happens so that we don't miss anything. However, that being said, viewers, if you would like to go and look for something else, we can. The Nkuhuma sighting is extremely busy. I have not been able to get into that sighting, so I don't know if that's going to be a possibility. We have a lot of vehicles from the other lodges trying, and just to give you the information, and I do think in the next little while Hosana will go up to the kill. So it's up to you guys. My personal preference would be to sit here and wait for the action, but maybe some of you have a different idea in mind. Oh, there's a Cokie Franklin in the background. And of course now it stops. Cokie, Cokie, Cokie. We'll see if he starts up again. I'll try and get that on audio for you. Now, for anyone that's new with us, we love to hear from you as well. We get a lot of questions and comments from viewers who've been with us throughout the years. But if you're new, don't be shy. You don't need to lurk in the background. # Safari Live on the Twitter or on YouTube chat. Even if you just want to say hello, we love hearing from you. And there's more elephants coming through from time to time. Maybe we get interaction with them. Sky, you'd like to know when we last saw Tingana scent mark and patrol in the area. So Sky, whenever Tingana is moving, he's scent marking and patrolling. He's constantly doing that because he is territorial. The last time I personally saw him doing it was probably 2 weeks ago, I would say. Right around in there, maybe 3, something like that. But whenever he moves, he's going to be doing his scent marking and patrolling. They don't choose specific times to do it. It's whenever they're going somewhere, and they might be more active at some points doing it and a little bit less active, but they're constantly looking for food, for ladies, and at the same time marking their territory. And actively demarcating. Hosana doesn't actively demarcate yet. First Lady, you're asking about hunting and if leopards only hunt in their own territory or in others' territory. So, First Lady, when it comes to female leopards and male leopards, there will be a male leopard, and within his territory will be 4 or 5 females. So all of those females hunt actively within his territory. If you're going to hear a car just behind me, we've got a vehicle pulling up, so please excuse the noise. Then leopards have territories as well as a bit of home ranges to help move around, to be able to get to different food sources, especially if there's something like a drought or any of that going on. They try not to move over too much into other territories, but if they think that a territory is vacated, they can't smell a territory around, or If they think that they can take over part of a territory of another leopard, they will move into other territories and possibly do some hunting. I've also seen sneaky leopards knowing they're fully well they're going across territory, killing something, and then either being chased away or managing to finish their meal and then going back to their own territory. So territories are not very rigid. They're movable and flexible, and there's so many different variables that take up a territory's function and functionality. Eloise, you'd like to know the difference between a territory and a home range. So, Eloise, a territory is demarcated using vocal and olfactory ways, so scent marking using urine, as well as scratching it for a leopard in particular, scratching their paws on the ground, rubbing their faces on certain trees, and then also vocalizing, making that sort of sawing noise, that huh, huh, huh. A home range, they do not demarcate. It just is something that they push into to help alleviate any circumstances whereby they might be having trouble finding food. When females have their cubs, they have their cubs inside of their core territories, not inside of their outer territories in general. Remember, take everything with a grain of salt, because a lot of what we're talking about now has been found out from research over the years, but remember, the animals don't read the books, so there can be different scenarios. So lots of wiggle room, depending. A gestation doesn't have too much wiggle room, but you get where I'm going with that. Then with the home range, they won't have their babies in their home range. Now, something like a white rhino and a black rhino, they also have territory and home range. Something like an elephant doesn't have a territory; it just has home ranges. They also have seasonal feeding patterns, areas that they prefer in the winter and areas they prefer in the summer. So elephants are non-territorial and work only in a home range. Black rhino females and black rhino males are territorial, both the two of them. With white rhinos, the females are non-territorial and the males are territorial, so the females will work in a home range and the males will not. However, that being said, I have worked with a female rhino who was in an area without male rhinos for a long time, and she had two female rhinos, this is white rhinos now, that used to hang around with her, and I watched her scent marking like a male one day. I had it recorded on video, and unfortunately that hard drive went the way of the ghost, but it was really amazing. We talked about it for a couple of weeks. So obviously her testosterone levels had picked up a bit, and she'd felt the need to do that and has slightly changed her behavior. So that's the type of wiggle room, an example of the type of wiggle room that I was referring to earlier. All right, everyone, you are saying you want to say, Captain, you would like to find a chameleon. Captain, I would also like to find a chameleon. We've been lucky with chameleons walking across the road. Captain, I will keep an eye out for chameleons while we stay here with Hosana, as it's basically about a 98-99% majority rule. And I agree, guys. I think we're going to get some possible action, even if the action is just him moving around and possibly moving up that tree. The direction that we heard those impalas alarm calling in, when the elephants got there, they did make some vocal noises that made me think that there's possibly still something there. So I'm also keen to see what would happen. Although today is a very hot day, so I don't know if it's going to happen whilst we are still on air. We will have to wait and see.